point-to-point integration may not seem to be effective or clever because you can hardly standardize it because it's a custom project most of the times, or it was most of the times. And also this very new term, ERP integrated or real ERP integrated e-commerce software.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. If you asked most salespeople about whether their software can integrate, their standard answer would be that they have APIs. Well, APIs allow you to retrieve data from systems in a structured fashion and remove the technical boilerplate of that system. You still need to design your integration flows around your business requirements. APIs are not meant to have self-integration capability. This is especially true for integration between your e-commerce and ERP systems, as that disrupts your operational core and transactions. A well-defined and vendor-agnostic integration model can provide the cushion you need for your business model to succeed. In today's episode, our guest, Ingo Hagemann, shares his insights into the integration challenges of ERP and e-commerce software. He also discusses the shortcomings of point-to-point versus middleware-oriented integration and in which situations they might not be the best fit. Finally, he discussed the expensive nature of real-time calls and how they need to be analyzed for enterprise performance and the role of ERP-integrated commerce solutions. Let me introduce Ingo to you. As COO and Managing Partner, Ingo Hagemann is responsible for the product and business development of Project Teams, a successful technology company in the B2B e-commerce sector from Germany. The main product, One Experience B2B, is a middleware for the integration of specific ERP and B2B online shop business processes for effective and efficient B2B e-commerce, which enables manufacturers and wholesalers to increase their sales and revenue in distribution, reduce process costs, and increase customer satisfaction. Ingo's interests lie in the areas of B2B, ERP, and online shops, with a focus on solutions for ERP-integrated B2B online shops for SMEs. In almost 15 years of e-commerce service, he has learned the importance of ERP systems for processes and business functions for the digitization of sales and procurement. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hey Ingo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sam. Nice being here. Thank you for inviting me to the show.
And I am super excited to have you as well because the kind of work you do, especially when it comes to ERP and e-commerce integration, it's always going to be fascinating. Just to kick things off, Ingo, do you want to start with your personal story and your current focus?
Yeah, right. I'm 37 years old. I'm married. I have one little daughter. And since 2007, I'm involved in e-commerce topics. So for 15 years now, I am experienced in implementing digital commerce scenarios. And the last half of my experience, especially in the B2B context.
Yeah.
Today, as a COO and managing partner of Project 1, a successful technology company from Germany, I'm responsible for product and business development. And we provide a product, and this product is a middleware for integrating ERP and B2B e-commerce systems. And the unique selling proposition is that we provide specific ERP integrations and not the familiar ones, SAP and Microsoft, but more the ERPs which are relevant for mid-market in Europe And we have some experience, and myself, I have some experience in integration projects between ERP and B2B e-commerce systems, especially with manufacturers and wholesalers. And I know a lot of practical stuff about implementation. I have a developer background, and also I'm now a product developer, a product owner in my company. So I have a broad experience brought here in the show, and I hope I can be of value for your audience.
Yeah, and this is the beauty of the show, because when we discuss different perspectives, they are going to be so different. Typically, our audience is going to be the business audience, but it's always good to understand from the developer's perspective as well. So it's going to be so exciting. Before we dig into all of that, we have one of these standard questions that we ask every single guest, Ingo, and that is going to be your perspective on business growth.
Yeah, right. Thank you for the question. I thought a lot about the growth in our business model, and I think our business model you can describe as a service-oriented company. So as an agency, digital agency, and now a technology company, we have a lot to do with the value we are adding through service, and of course. There is this famous citation, I think it's from Andreessen, that software eats the world.
Yeah.
And I would adapt it a bit. Software eats services first. So as an entrepreneur in the digital sector and the COO now of a digital agency, and we're becoming a technology company, I've been dealing with the question of the future viability of my own business model for the last few years. And my thesis is that agencies and digital service providers, as we know them today, it will no longer exist in 5 years, because we have very strong trends in the business, like low code, like transformation of some fields where service can be or is of value towards software and technology. So I think every agency, every software, every company which is bringing value through services has to think about, is technology a possible future for me, especially and above all for digital companies, agencies, because services, I think it's very difficult making a profit in the future, because either big companies, they will have in-house agencies, or they will use low-code solutions. So for me and my company, I decided to get the way towards developing products. So our middleware we speak about today, and integrate ERP and shop systems. So I would say, as a result, you only can scale your business when you have some products in the middle of your value you bring, and you can not only scale through services.
Okay, so very interesting perspective there, and I love the phrase that you used during your conversation, that software eats the world, and it cannot be more true than that, because software is definitely eating the world at this point of time. There is just so much software, and sometimes it could be extremely confusing for business audience to find out which software is doing what, and creating that business or the enterprise architecture that is really going to help them with their goal. And that's where you have been using a term called middleware. Now, middleware could mean a lot of different things. In fact, my audience may not even be familiar with what middleware is. Middleware could mean your iPaaS, it could mean low-code, no-code platform, it could be the integration layer. So in your perspective, which middleware are we talking about? What is the roles and responsibility of this middleware, what it is going to do, and where you are going to draw the boundaries when this middleware is going to be integrating different systems? Maybe name those systems as well.
Yeah, right. So I have to start a bit before that. So we will integrate two systems. So most of the time we will integrate ERP systems, which are existing systems which are given in the IT landscape of the company, of the manufacturer, and integrate it to a B2B e-commerce solution. So as with any project, a successful integration begins with the planning. And yeah, we need to understand how data should flow. We have to build a migration plan and stuff. But for the integration part, there are several approaches. So one approach is the point-to-point integration, where you integrate in a customized way the ERP system with the e-commerce system directly. And another approach is to have a third system up and running. So the middleware integration model is when a centralized software sits between multiple systems, like an ERP or product information management system or an e-commerce system. So you decouple them in a way. And it's important because so many ERP systems, especially when they are older kind of software for the manufacturing or production business, they have never been thought of been used in an e-commerce perspective. So they don't have, or they don't have the function, or they do not function in the way an e-commerce system or an e-commerce logic work. And I think the middleware approach, you can have a hub, so some integration hub, or you can enterprise service bus, or you can have some iPaaS, so you name integration platform as a service. So all approaches I would summarize as a middleware approach, and there are differences between them because some approaches like the iPaaS or enterprise service bus, they can, or this is an architecture where you can chain several systems, so several applications with another bunch of applications and hub or middleware, as I would use it most of the times. It's kind of a direct connection in the context of one customer. So I hope I can make a bit clear what I mean with the middleware.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Love the commentary about the P2P system, P2P integration, where, your systems are going to be connected with each other without that decoupling, the word that you mentioned. So the couple of challenges that you are going to get in case of your P2P is, let's say if one of the systems are going to fail, the second system is going to fail as well. In case of your e-commerce scenario, the decoupling, in my experience, is extremely important because in most cases, your e-commerce system is probably going to be faster than your ERP because e-commerce does not need to go through the same business rule hierarchy. The length of the transaction is not as long as you are going to have in the ERP. So your ERP is always going to be slower. Now, if you are looking at very volumetric or the transactional business, then your e-commerce is going to run way faster. And if you have the point-to-point integration, you don't really have a way of throttling the load for the ERP. Have you experienced the same while designing the integration between your ERP and e-commerce? Do you have similar recommendation as what I am talking about? And is that the reason why middleware is going to be handy between the integrations?
I think yes. I would answer the question with a yes.
Okay.
But in today's market or in the landscape of systems, we see a new trend, and it's called ERP-integrated. So I think 4 approaches today. Not only the approach I was mentioning, but we have also this ERP-integrated term. Okay. And what it means to some of the systems which are very leading the market for real-time integration. Yeah. They mean that ERP integrated is you put your e-commerce application into you integrate it deeply in the ERP system. So you use, for example, the same database the ERP is using for your e-commerce transactions. Okay. So then you have this real-time term, and you have this customer experience promise, because everything is integrated. But what I have experienced is that, a point-to-point integration may not seem to be effective or clever, because you can hardly standardize it, because it's a custom project most of the times, or it was most of the times. And also this very new term, ERP integrated or real ERP integrated e-commerce software, which is built directly in the ERP, is also not a real good fit sometimes, because when you have a newly built up ERP system, or a modern ERP system, which already has some kind of an API or interface, like a REST API, and is capable of dealing with this e-commerce requirements, like 1,000 transactions in a certain time or something like that, then it's all good. But when we talk about manufacturer ERP systems, which are a little bit older most of the times, then this real-time integration may slow down your ERP system, may be a danger for security and performance of the ERP system in the production. So you cannot work this way. And I think, the middleware approach with this nuances I mentioned, like a hub or enterprise service bus or an iPaaS approach, is the right answer. And this decoupling is very important.
Okay, so I'm actually going to rephrase everything that we have discussed so far to make sure that we are aligned, number one, and number two, our listeners are able to follow along as well. So obviously, we wanted to talk about this notion of pre-integrated ERP. And my understanding of pre-integrated ERP is going to be your point-to-point integrated. So initially, you expressed a little concerns with respect to P2P approach, and that's why we need to go for the middleware and the approach where you have a little bit of kind of a broker or the quarterback that is doing the throttling of the load between two systems, because they are running at a very different pace, right? But then you mentioned that, you are going to have this approach in case of manufacturing. This is going to be slightly trickier because manufacturing transactions are deeper, they are slightly more complex. In my experience, I have seen this in case of retail and distribution as well, because the volume of transaction is going to be far more, and ERP struggles to handle that. So are we aligned that pre-integrated ERP approach is not going to work in most cases, especially if you are dealing with a lot of transactions? If you don't, let's say if you are doing 100 transactions per day, no big deal, that could probably work. But are we agreeing that the point-to-point pre-integrated ERP solutions may not be the best fit for every situation?
I think for most ERP systems, this is right. When you look at Sana Commerce or Callwist, I think they are trying to give you or provide a real-time integration with this new kind of approach of ERP integrated commerce through modern AIs. So they regularly connect Microsoft or SAP systems, which with Magento or with modern React front ends. So it can work. So when there are very modern ERP systems in the landscape, but for most of the ERP system, and as you know, most of the ERP system in your manufacturing or production environment, they are not implemented last year, but they are 20 years old or something like that, or 10 years old, and there you have just certain capabilities of integrating your system, your e-commerce system. So you need a bunch of tools like SOAP, XML, and you need some fantasy to get into the application logic. You need a VPN or something like that. So you have to get into the position to get the data out and write the data into the system. And when this is challenged, then this point-to-point integration, whether it's the old click point-to-point integration, the direct integration, or the ERP integrated modern integration, is the wrong approach. I would say the middleware approach is the better approach, especially for these ERP systems of age.
Okay, so very interesting. So I am again going to rephrase and make sure that we are aligned overall with the conversation. So you mentioned Sana Commerce, and I don't know if that uses the modern approach that you are saying that, modern ERP systems are designed to handle that real-time integration scenario. And they actually share the database. If I could hear you correctly, I think you did mention that they actually share the database. Now, from my experience working with ERP and e-commerce, ERP databases are extremely, extremely complex. They have far deeper depth overall in terms of their, depth of the transactions. And that's what makes the ERP slow, very rigid the way it works. E-commerce systems are not designed to be as rigid, because what you are trying to accomplish from the e-commerce systems is you want to get that order entry as soon as possible or as fast as possible, because that's what is in the best interest of your user and the consumer. Now, end user don't care for whether you have all of your credit checks done, whether you have all of your financial checks done. They are hoping to just capture the order and then you take care of that and then just communicate with me at each step of the process, so I know whether my order is accepted or failed. But from the user perspective, they are trying to place the order. Now, when you are going to share the database hierarchy is going to be shared. The master data is going to be shared. So do you believe that the integration is still going to work? The experience that these users are expecting with this real-time integration, they are still going to get the same experience. In my experience, if I look at from my perspective, I don't think the experience is going to be the same if they are sharing the database, because it's not going to be the e-commerce versus ERP, and then you have the broker sitting inside between that is doing the job of the integration. In this particular case, you are sharing the database. So I don't think e-commerce is going to get the same experience. What would you think of that?
I think what you mentioned is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous communication. So
yeah.
What do I mean with that? When you integrate the ERP system with the e-commerce system and you have an order coming in from the e-commerce system.
Yeah.
So it can be an asynchronous process. So the ERP system can receive order, I think, after a period of synchronizing the data.
Yeah.
And it's not like a POS system, not like a cash register situation where the customer stands in front of you and you have to give them the receipt or something like that. But
okay.
The order can come in into the ERP system, into the e-commerce system, can be stored in an e-commerce database like MySQL or something like that, which is online, out, scalable, everything is fine, and then can periodically later on, not near time, but real near time, can be transferred to the ERP system. So both systems do not know each other necessarily. So when you have the need of a synchronous process, like for checking the availability or checking the customer specific price,
yeah,
then you have to look at what type of ERP is a given system. Is it a modern system? Is it a cloud-based system, or is it in your on-premise in servers you provide in your own company with your IT staff?
Yeah.
Is it a modern type of e-commerce system, which a GraphQL or at least a REST interface?
Yeah.
What type of integration is possible? And is the data accessible? So otherwise, this synchronous integration can be a very expensive and very hard to solve technical thing. And I think you have to question yourself whether it's really, really necessary to get okay, but in comparison to your market, a good experience to the customer. Most of the times, I would say no, it's not necessary. There are some scenarios I get into contact, for example, in the construction business, when you need to know when exactly will come your photovoltaic thing or will come your construction material to the site. So then you have to put up on a very complex availability process during the order, during the checkout.
Yeah.
But other times when you're dealing with spare parts or something like that, I don't think that it's necessary in every case, and especially not at the beginning when you're starting. You and your staff start to integrate, start to learn e-business processes, which you never have done before. because you only have sales personnel and you have no e-commerce experience. So I would just put it not on the top priority, but on the second priority, to have a synchronous communication. And I could add the pros and cons, or to the pros of this deep integration, of this point-to-point or modern ERP integration, which is directly dealing with the ERP database or directly working with the ERP native processes. Okay, of course, you have a better availability of data. You have every kind of data possibly available in your e-commerce system. You can gain a very deep quality of process, but you have disadvantages like security reasons. Real time is not every time real time is necessary. You have a very, I would say, expensive operation setup because you have to get your ERP in the cloud, and when you do not already have ERP in the cloud, then your old system has to be enabled by that, like a two-tier ERP approach, something like that. And I think most of the time you have your pros and cons on one sheet. Most of the time the cons overweight, and you should use a middleware approach, even if you could deal with a direct integration. So this is, I think, what you meant, as I understood.
Okay, so I am actually going to build on top of that and make sure that, again, my listeners are able to follow along with what we are speaking here. So my understanding of this, the last, discussion that we had is related to the pre-integrated e-commerce systems that are going to be pre-integrated with ERP. Now, they can take two approaches. Number one could be synchronous, and number two could be asynchronous. My understanding of these two is going to be that in case of synchronous, you are actually making the call with the API, meaning the other system has to be live and they process the call at the same time as the call is made. If the call is failed, then there is nothing that the system can do. It's simply going to fail. But in case of asynchronous, you are really batching these processes and you are processing in batches, even though you might not see from the external perspective. All of these points are going to be asynchronous in the communication, as let's say if e-commerce is trying to place the order. So as opposed to processing the same order at the same time, you are trying to batch these orders in a queue, and then you are actually sending it to your ERP system internally, even though you might not be using the middleware. But even if the modern e-commerce or pre-integrated e-commerce systems are trying to take this approach, but the integration is still going to be broadly defined, considering the needs of everyone in the market. You are not going to get as much flexibility as you are going to have when you are going to be defining your own integration flows, because everybody is going to have their own length of the transaction. They are going to have their own complexity in the transaction. They are also going to have their own volume. So do you feel that the pre-integrated ERP or the pre-integrated e-commerce, they are going to fall short when you are going to be needing slightly more nuanced need with respect to processing these transactions?
I have the feeling that the pre-integrated term is, it should be not only used for the real integrated. So your database is one database and you serve data for e-commerce and ERP in the same way. It should only be used as a term for a middleware integration, where the integration is prepared for your integration. So like Shopify did this global ERP campaign, I think in the last half of last year, they provide some, as a vendor, as a shop system vendor, they provide integrations for Info, Acumatica, Brightpearl, and other familiar systems for US market. I think they also could be named as pre-integrated. And also our approach, One Experience B2B, is a prepared integration for like Seiko AP Plus, Abbas Pro Alpha, Step Ahead, and other European systems here in the mid-market. And I think you can have the same you can have the same functions, and you have to get the same capabilities out of the setup for in a more standardized and a more effective way. And of course, it's more cost efficient, because this middleware approach, often the companies, which are providing this middleware approach, whether they are vendors, whether they are agencies or partners or technology companies like Seeburger or eBridge or something like that.
Yeah.
They can standardize the framework behind it and just put up or just develop or provide some connectors. And these connectors are just a certain percentage of the whole code of the framework. And so they can get you a better price to say integrate Magento to a SAP or a Magento to a Sage or Shopware to a Acumatica or something like that. So I think most of them, they have not prepared integrations for every combination. Yeah. But I think this is the right approach to a standardized product, which is of quality, which is not very cost, which has a good time to market. And I think, especially when we think not only about the enterprise piece, but also about SMBs, which is my field of day-to-day work, then we have to get a good price tag. Yeah. So I would name an example. You have to build up a solution, a B2B online shop with this popular B2B functions like quick order and I think proposals and stuff, the integration, and also some kind of connector. So you have to provide a package, a solution package with a prepared integration for under $1,000 a month. For rent, or like an like a software as a service package or something like that. And it cannot be this huge hundreds of man days or person day project, and this license costs again and again, as we are familiar with from enterprise companies like SAP Hybris or I think Shop or Salesforce Cloud or some other big vendors which are in the B2B market in the US as well as in Europe. So I think the middleware approach out of this perspective is the one who should you should take a look at it. And what added the last point, you're already seeing in the market that there are some alliances are forming. So you have lightweight ERP systems, which modern interface, but you have also this very huge systems like Infor and stuff, and they are seeking partners in the e-commerce world. And Shopify is the best example for that. So you see some alliances and integration ecosystems where whether you are coming, and this is most of the time the case, from the ERP side, or you're coming from the e-commerce side, there you can choose your ecosystem. You can choose that you in every case you want to have Shopify and you have an Infor ERP, then it's a low-brainer because Shopify is giving you integration. But when you have another combination, then you have to seek for the right integration. And I think this would be the structure of the approaches in the future a bit, so that you're not bundled to your, or that you're not locked in your ERP world, and then you have necessarily get a customized integration to the e-commerce system the marketing wants to have every case.
Yeah, so very interesting comments there. So obviously, I think we are agreeing that the middleware approach is probably going to be suitable for most businesses just because it provides far more control. Now, you need to choose which middleware you are going to be choosing. Are you going to be choosing the middleware that is going to be slightly more provided by the Shopify? As you mentioned that they have made the announcement, obviously, they are not going to provide every single pre-baked workflow. They are not going to be able to handle every single load requirements. They are probably going to be offering the connectors the way you mentioned. You still have to map, you still have to design that orchestration layer so that your specific requirements are going to be met. So there are different ways of integrating and designing this middleware, and that is going to be aligned to your needs. But one of the things that I really wanted to touch is the 24x7 scenario. As 24x7 architectures are slightly harder to implement. In case of your e-commerce, you need to have 24x7 because You cannot afford to have your site go down for very long. If it is going to be, let's say, for 5 minutes, in case of, let's say, if you're hosted on WooCommerce or Shopify, I don't know how long the Shopify goes down for the scheduled maintenance weekly. Let's say if they are going to be down for 5 minutes, no big deal. But if they are going to be down for an hour, that's a big deal. When you talk about ERP or any of the CRM system, their scheduled maintenance window is going to be far longer just because their databases are far deeper. They require far more time to be able to upgrade. And now, let's say if we take the pre-integrated approach, in case of pre-integrated, now you need to bring the entire system down because you are actually interrupting the state of the entire system because of this upgrade. So now your upgrade cycle is going to be far longer as well. So do you agree that this is going to be a con for the pre-integrated ERP, especially if you are thinking of 24x7 scenario where ERPs, even the cloud ERPs today, I don't know a system that does not go down for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, and you cannot afford to have your e-commerce down for that long if it is going to be tightly coupled with your ERP.
Yeah, you need a graceful degradation or something like that in the feature set of your e-commerce system, but it's very complex. So in general, real-time personalized inventory availability or real-time customer-specific credit status or something like that. Everything what is real-time and what is related to orders, which or what has to run against ERP business rules or has to be simulated in an ERP. It's not possible in this moment. So the ERP is down, and the ERP is. I got familiar with ERP systems. They need a batch processing a whole night to calculate price lists for customer specific or configurations or something like that. You cannot rely on this kind of logic and at the same time provide e-commerce or order flow or checkout process during the night, or we are in a globalized world at the other on the other side of the world on the same database. It is blocked. You cannot write up into this database. It's I don't know. Okay, you can provide some approach, but then we are already in the middleware approach, because even if your ERP is working on this price calculations during the night, your middleware can have an own storage. It could be a cloud storage, scalable, relational or non-relational database. You have every technology which is given available, and there you can store or you can cache your orders. Okay, there are some limitations, as I mentioned before. I think reordering, simple reorder processes or simple order processes, no problem. Simple configurations, which are only are dealt with in the front end, is no problem. And for the other capabilities, you have to find a nice way of communicate these limitations to your customers. So this service is out of work for let's say 2 hours, but the rest of your order flow is working. And I think a 24/7 scenario is a good example for a con for this pre-integrated approach, when you integrate point to point an ERP system with a relatively new e-commerce system. And this is the case most of the time. So you have a relatively old, not recently updated ERP system for a manufacturer. It's never been thought of as an e-commerce operating system, and you have a very, very new, let's say Shopify or let's say Salesforce, or no, Salesforce is no good example because it's cloud craze behind it, but the Shopify, a very, very modern architecture, and you cannot use the benefit of the modern architecture because you have not the accessibility to the data in the old ERP system. And you can cache, you can deal with that circumstances best if you have a middleware which can store the data, which can do the writing or reading operations, which can also get or also enable some of the logic of the ERP system when you have a good business case and you worked on that middleware further on. So you can, of course, implement at some of the vendors of middleware or iPaaS platform, you can implement your specific logic into the middleware. And I see it most of the times with availability and price calculations, or when a configuration engine is in stake, or when a recommendation or a CRM engine is in stake. So these are the typical types. And most of the times, I think the question is, shouldn't it be better a PIM or a CRM system as a third system, as a real CRM system, which is the better approach than putting the logic into your middleware, because otherwise it's not available. Like, for example, sending out a newsletter, but you don't get the customer data or the email addresses out of your ERP system, then you get some customer grouping logic into your middleware. I would say no, that's not the right approach. Just implement an HubSpot and connect the HubSpot to your middleware, which is also already connected to your ERP system, and try to not have so many implementations point to point, but to have a hub logic on hub architecture where some systems are plugged in this one hub.
Yeah, could not agree more. I think you make a very good point that even if you can figure out a point-to-point integration of two different systems, in most cases, even a small business is probably going to require multiple systems, and these systems need to communicate with each other. So you are anyways going to require a middleware. So why not design an architecture around the middleware? On that note, that's it for today. Do you have any last-minute closing thoughts or remarks for our listeners?
So our vision is to enable the mid-market SMBs of this world to have your own access to customer, to not necessarily rely on marketplaces and global platforms. And therefore, it's necessary that there are solutions in the market which are affordable and which are ERP-integrated systems, B2B online systems, or other systems for sales, digitization, or e-procurement. And I think the market has to work on the cost efficiency and the easiness and time to market for especially the mid-market SMB companies all over the world, to help them to stay in the competition. Because at the moment, I only see in the Gartner quadrant, I see only companies, only vendors who are heading for enterprise companies. But especially in Germany and Europe, I don't know, I think in US too, there are a lot of small to mid-sized companies which have very good products, which are global or which are hidden champions in the worldwide competition. And they need not only a platform like Amazon Amazon Business or something like that, they need owned tools. And we have to provide them with their tools. And that is what we in Europe and Germany try to do. We try to be the Shopify B2B Plus for the specific ERP systems which are given. And this is not SAP or Microsoft or something like that. These are ERP systems you don't even know the name, because there are so many ERP systems in the market for manufacturers, specific solutions, and they have to be enabled for e-commerce. And this is what we have to do from the service side, from the consulting side, and as well from the productized service side or the product side. We have to provide cost-efficient and effective solutions for the SMB and mid-market companies to give them their own weapons. So I would like to bring in this site from the Shopify founder. So when Amazon is the Imperium, or Amazon is the dark side, and Shopify is trying to bring in the weapons. It's not the exact side, but I'm very fond of this type of thing. I'm very fan of Amazon business model, but I also know that it cannot be good for all the workplaces, all the wealth in the world, when every transaction is concentrated on a very few big companies.
Okay, amazing. And my personal takeaway from this conversation is going to be, you might think that your answer to all of your problems is probably going to be ERP or e-commerce. That's typically not the answer. It's going to be the integration that is going to define your business model, that is going to make your business successful. On that note, Ingo, I really want to thank you for your time. This has been a powerful episode.
Thank you.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Ingo, head over to proeins.de. It's proeins.de. They offer B2B online shops with specific ERP integrations for manufacturers and wholesalers so that they can digitize their sales in a specialized, powerful, and economically successful way. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. If anything in this podcast resonated with you and your business, you might want to check other related episodes, including the interview with Michael Vox, who shares his insights on the marketplace business model and the challenges associated with launching it. Also, the interview with Phil Kerper, who shares his insights into executing on DTC strategy. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.